Hello adventurers of Hyperborea. This is the third in my series of videos about the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT. My name's Dave and I'm the developer of the system. For this video, we'll be creating a new character and talking about a bunch of important character sheet features as we go through the process. And we've already covered how to create a fighter and how to create a thief. And this one is going to be how to create a magician. Later videos will cover topics like creating a cleric, covering the monster and NPC sheets, item sheets of all kinds, and we'll demo some of the premium content compendia that are currently in development. For this video, I'll make some use of the compendia, and we'll also talk about how to set up and play the game without those being available. Note that you do need to have a copy of the Hyperborea rules in order to use the system. You can find the books in PDF or physical format at the Northwind Adventures website and other resellers. I'll put a link to the publisher in the doobly-doo below. Also, this system for Foundry VTT is based on the current Hyperborea 3rd edition rules. I'm pretty sure it would work just fine for 2nd edition and maybe even 1st edition, but since I don't have those rule sets, I have no way to test them out. So, the player's manual for Hyperborea outlines the steps of character creation in this order. First, generate attributes. Second, choose a class. Third, develop a background. Fourth, purchase equipment. Fifth, determine starting spells. And sixth, record other statistics. We're going to follow this order, and as we go, I'll cover the features of the character sheet throughout the process. So to start, let's create a new blank character. Create actor, leave it as character. I will call this guy Andronakos of Ix. As you can see, the character sheet opens with the default 10 values for all attributes, which we will replace by rolling the dice. We're going to follow method 3 from the player's manual for attribute generation, which is to roll 4d6 and discard the lowest die roll, then assign attributes as desired. My goal here is to make a magician, which has pretty low attribute requirements, but I still want to make sure we get a few good bonuses. So I can just paste this text into the chat like that to roll up 6 attributes very quickly. And there we go, not bad at all. Let's see how it shakes out in the character sheet. So at the top, I'm going to select magician from the class, just like that. And I just want to also point out, since I'm at the top of the character sheet, race and languages have been recently moved to this part of the character sheet. So if you watched my fighter and thief character videos, these were not there. They were actually on this description tab mixed in with all this information here, these other blank fields. But working with the publisher, they requested that I went ahead and move these fields over here for easy access when players are playing. So we've got race here. I said he was going to be of Ix, and languages is just a plain text field which I can fill in later. So back to attributes then. I've got the attribute numbers. I'm going to take just a moment here. I'm going to pause the video and come back after I have the numbers filled in. And we have our attributes now. Now to fill in the attribute modifiers, we just click this book icon, and first we get a warning that it's going to wipe and replace any values we might have already put in those fields. Since I haven't put anything in there, I'm just going to click confirm. And there they are. Now my recommendation here is that you should always start with the automatic assignments via the book icon like I just did, since that's going to help you avoid any typos or errors, anything like that. After that, you can make any changes or customizations. Just be sure you don't use the book again later or it will wipe out those customizations. So now that we have our attributes filled in along with the modifiers, let's look at the lower part of the abilities tab. That's where we are here, down here under class abilities. So along with choosing a class, adding its abilities will actually finish us through step 2 in the character creation process, since I've already selected the class here as well. Without the compendium, you can simply add new abilities with the add feature button, just like that. Now I've got a new feature here. I can click the pencil and paper icon to edit the item. Realize that most of this information is optional. It's not really required by the system. But if the ability has some kind of skill check associated with it, you will need to fill in the check roll field, which is the type of die roll, like a D12 or a D6 or whatever it happens to be, maybe a D100. And then the target field is your target number for success. With those two fields filled in, then the system can do a standard roll under check to determine success or failure. Everything else is optional and it does not really affect the mechanics of the game system. So for example, I could do sorcery, if I can spell it right, which of course is simply the ability to cast spells, which a magician would have. I can put magician here, but again, totally optional. It's available from level 1, obviously, but if it was a skill that didn't kick in until level 3 or level 4, you probably would want to put the level here for reference. Again, the check roll the target, if there was one. Defaults, if you have rolling a check roll and a target number, you would probably want to select public roll most of the time. Blind GM roll is going to be the second most common selection. That's going to be things like, well, for a magician, you may never use it. For a thief, it might be checking for secret doors, where the GM may not necessarily want the player to know if they were successful or not. So you would roll it like this so the GM sees the die roll results, but the player does not, in any case. And then saving throw, if there's a saving throw that goes with the ability. So, and then you can paste in a description. This is rich text here. I could copy and paste it from the Hyperborea PDF player's manual, or I could just type it in, whatever I want to do. And then once I'm done, I just close this and I've got sorcery here and it's ready to go. Since I do have the compendia in development, I'll just take a few seconds now to delete him. And then I'm going to drag and drop all the class abilities from there onto the character sheet. So I'm just going to show you what that would look like, but I'm going to do it fast forward with no sound. Okay, now we have all the class abilities added. Standard features of the character sheet in this section, but also in like inventory and other sections include, as I mentioned already, if the ability has a check roll, which none of these do, but if it did, what would happen is I could mouse over this icon on the left side and it would change to a D20, indicating that I could actually do the skill check right from that. Since there are no check rolls here, there's nothing to do. You can also click the ability name to pop down its description in the character sheet, as I have just done. You can also, I'm going to flip back over here, you can click this little eyeball icon, and that will pop the description of the ability over in the chat box on the right side of Foundry VTT. We've already shown the pencil and paper icon, so this is what it looks like when I edit something that came out of the compendium, and we are taking the text straight out of the player's manual for the description. We do have the classes listed here, the level when it becomes available, if that's an issue. You can see in the level column here, most of these don't have a level attached to them. They just are available from level 1 for that character class. But if it doesn't kick in until a later level, we do populate it. And of course, no check roll, no target roll, anything like that. You can also click the trash can icon to delete the ability if you accidentally added the wrong ability to the character sheet or something like that. And finally, you can drag and drop the abilities to sort them in whatever order you want. So I'm just going to pause really briefly here and sort these alphabetically, followed by the levels at the very bottom. And there we go. Now they're all sorted. As I said, I like to do things alphabetically for all of the skills that have no level. And then we do them in level number order when they start having level minimums in order to, or prerequisites to be able to use that skill. Notice also, if there is a check roll attached, it tells you what it is right here and what the target number is. So again, none of these have one. If you look at the thief class video, I actually go into more depth on how that works because lots of thief abilities have those. So we've now finished step 2, which was the class abilities. Now we move to step 3, which is your character background. So here we're going to jump to the description tab on the sheet, and you can fill in most or all of these fields here. Since these fields are not used by the system for any game mechanical features, I'm actually going to skip this step. But now you know where to find them when you are ready to create your own character. And of course you've got the race and languages up here, which again, that's a new feature in the character sheet. I just added it in my most recent test or beta release, so that's brand new. It wasn't in the previous videos, as I mentioned already. Now, step 4 would be purchasing equipment. So in the player's manual, each class has an optional equipment set that can just be taken as a block, and then you have a few coins left over. So this allows you to get up and running quickly without spending a ton of time choosing all of your gear. I'm going to go ahead and use this optional rule to quickly add the weapons and the armor and other gear to Andronakos' character sheet. So again, I'm just going to pause here and add the items. I should also mention, as with class abilities, you can either add items manually and then edit them with whatever information is needed just by clicking this add item, and again, just pencil and paper and edit whatever you want to do here. Or again, I'm going to just drag and drop them from the compendium, which gets us up nice and quickly. And then we'll take some time to look at the different types and see how they work after I'm done. So back in a second here. Okay, I have all of my weapons and equipment added to the sheet now. We're going to take a couple of minutes to go over each item type, both the general equipment and also the weapons and armor on the combat tab. We'll dig more deeply into how you use the items on your sheet in a later video, but that's a bigger topic than we want to tackle right now. So we'll just cover the basics. Starting with the items tab here, this is where all of your non-combat gear goes. It also does include ammunition, but not the weapons themselves. Some features to note. Containers are sorted automatically to the top. So you see you've got the backpack, small pouch, small sack at the top of the list. You can drag non-container items over a container, and that will move the item into the container. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So let's just take, for example, the ink and quill, and we're going to put that in our small pouch, just like that. And maybe I'll even add the parchment as well. So you can see as I drag them over the small pouch, it moves up here and it's indented underneath. And you can see under location it says small pouch as well. So just like that. To move an item out of a container, just drag it over another non-container item and release it. So I can actually drag ink and quill right over parchment, and that pulls it out of the small pouch, and it popped it back down. Where'd my ink and quill go now? Oh, there it is right here. So it actually pulls it out of the container, and then I can just drag it right back up here to put it in the container just like that. I could also have dragged it all the way down, somewhere down here. It'll do the same thing. It just pulls it out of the container. Outside of containers, you can drag these items over each other to sort them. And you can see now bandages is down here, whereas it was up here before, so I can just drag it back up there. I've got bandages, blanket, whoops, there we go. Sort them just like that. So it can be a little fiddly when you're dragging and dropping, of course, but it does work. You may just have to drag it more than once if you're not very precise with where you're dropping things. Let's see now. Moving a container, dragging and dropping. Ah yes, consumable items have these little plus minus buttons next to them so that you can easily decrease or increase your current inventory. So I can just say, let's see, I've used bandages, so I can just hit the minus. Now I've got 0 out of my original inventory of 1. I can also re-increment it back up to 1, just like that. Sling bullets, same idea. If you need to change the actual maximum number, for example, let's say you normally have 7 days of rations, but you change it to 14 days, you actually have to go in here and edit this number right here. This is the total, and this is your current stock. So now if I just leave it like that, you'll see this is 7 of 14, and now I can bump this all the way up. I could have done it in the edit sheet as well, but I'm just showing you how this works. If I click plus anymore, I can't go higher than my maximum. So if you want to edit the maximum, you have to do it in the item, as I said, just like that. And then you can update the current inventory just like that. Encumbrance section in the lower left calculates your character's weight carried based only on the weapons, armor, and equipment which is listed in this section above here. Treasure in this lower right quadrant is not included, since this is really just an editable rich text field, as you can see here. And once you save that, it's just text. In addition, the money section, which is numeric, is also not counted. If you really want to count the weight of coins, I'd recommend just creating an item in your items up here. And I could just call this, carrying coin or something like that. And maybe that, I've got 1 pound worth, and just call it like that. And then just close that, and there we go. So now you can see I've got that. And it would be included in this 30 pounds then that I'm currently carrying. The Hyperborea system is pretty informal with its encumbrance rules. So this number here basically puts you in the ballpark for what your characters carry. But again, it's not really intended to be super exact. Okay, from here we can go to the Combat tab, and we'll just start with the weapons. Since they are very similar to the way the items work, the columns are different, of course, because you've got weapon statistics here. But otherwise, I can take and I can drag and drop to resort things just like that. There's quarterstaff after sling. I can drag it back up to put it ahead. You can drag. I showed this with the abilities. I didn't show it with the items, but anytime you can do this with items as well on the items tab. You click the name to pop the description down just like that. You can also click the pencil and paper to edit. Again, you click the eyeball to pop its description over on the right side. Trash can to delete, same as anything else. Ammunition would be displayed right here. As you can see, I've got a sling bullets. Those are also shown on the items tab. But again, I can increment and decrement my current number of bullets. So this allows me to very quickly use ammunition in combat, track it in real time. And then after the battle, if I recover some or all of my ammunition, I can just re-increment it back up to where I should be. Weapons and armor can both be equipped with this t-shirt button. Just click it to toggle on and off. For weapons, there's no mechanical effect on the system or the sheet, but it can serve as a friendly reminder of what you're currently prepared to use. For armor is different because when you equip or unequip your armor, it also affects your armor class up here. Now, I'm not wearing any armor, so I can't demo that. If you want to see what that looks like, watch the fighter or the thief video. It goes into more detail. But basically, equipping and unequipping armor and shields does change this automatically. And we'll even have more to say on this in a later video where we actually talk about combat. So let's review the upper section here for fighting skills and combat statistics. Under fighting skills, we fill in the character's fighting ability, which actually for a magician is 0 at level 1. And his unskilled penalty, which is -4 for a magician. And then his class favored weapons, which I'm just going to paste from the PDF of the player's manual. So we've got that there. On the combat stats side, we set up his hit dice, which is D4 for a magician. So we'll do that. Then we're going to roll this. And this will include the con mod, as you can see right here, if there is one. It looks like he does have a +1 constitution, so he's going to get D4 +1, so we'll roll that. Hey, I rolled a 4, so I get 5 hit points. So we're just going to change this default here to 5 out of 5. Armor class, I already mentioned, is automatically calculated, but movement speed is not. There's just enough exceptions for movement. It didn't make sense to include that in the calculation. But unarmored, you do have a default move of 40. It's only when you start becoming, slightly encumbered by heavier armors that this number would drop. Last on the combat tab, we fill in the saving throws by just looking them up in the book, and then we apply the class modifiers. So I'm going to pause here and look that up really quickly. Okay, we've got the saving throws filled in. So 16 across the board for a first level character, and of course magicians get a +2 bonus on devices and sorcery, so that makes it 14 there. Finally, we move to step 5, selecting our starting spells. For magician, we start with 3 spells in his spell book, of which he can have 1 of them memorized and usable per day. This is then adjusted by his intelligence bonus spells, assuming he has any. And if the magician has a familiar, he may also get additional spells. But to keep it simple, I'll just start with his base spells plus int-based bonus spells. So I'm going to jump over to abilities, You can see for intelligence, he gets a level 1 bonus spell and a level 2 bonus spell. And then, if his int was high enough, he might even get a level 3 and a level 4. Clerics are the same down here for wisdom. Obviously, for a magician, this doesn't apply, so you can just ignore that, but this is what applies. So level 1 for intelligence. Starting with that, first of all, casting ability. Level 1 magician has a casting ability, or CA, of 1. Spells per day is the memorized or memorizable. So he's allowed 2. 1 because he's a first level magician, and 1 bonus spell for his high intelligence. So that's a 2. These numbers are just used for tracking. They don't actually have any mechanical effect on the sheet. And we'll leave the rest of these blank since Andronakos can't actually cast any higher level spells just yet. Now let's look at how to enter a new spell as if you didn't have access to the compendium. These spells you see here I dragged in from the compendium, but we're going to add a custom one right now, a new spell, just by clicking the Add Level 1 button. That creates a new spell in Level 1 here. And then I can click the pencil and paper icon to edit it. And now, of course, most of these fields are informational, but there are 2 that affect the mechanics of the system: the attack roll checkbox and the damage field. The damage field takes a rollable formula, just like same with weapons, like 1d6 or 1d4 plus 1, whatever it happens to be. And you can also use system variables in the formula, which I'll show you an example of a little bit later here from one of the spells from the compendium. So we can fill in these fields, and then we get the spell name here, and we save it, and we're done. Closing this spell then, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this. In the spells table, here we have a few bits of key information shown, like the range and the duration, and what type of saving throw it has. Much of the functionality here is the same as for weapons or equipment. So click the spell name and it pops down the description. Click the plus and minus buttons to increment and decrement the number memorized. So just like that, and since I'm allowed 2, I just went ahead and added a 1 and a 1 on light and magic missile. Sleep is in his spell book, but it's not currently memorized. The eyeball display over here pops the description over in the chat, and the damage actually appears as a clickable button. So that's one of the things where I talked about how it can actually affect the mechanics of the system. If you put in a valid formula in the damage field, you're going to get this button. And then, of course, we know the pencil and paper icon to edit and the trash button to delete. So no difference there from any other part of the character sheet. By the way, remember the attack roll checkbox on the spell sheet. So toggling that assigns a basic attack formula to the spell, which would be 1d20 plus the character's fighting ability, or FA. The formula can be edited by the GM, and I'll show you that here. Acid Arrow does require an attack roll, so that's the reason I put this here. So you can see this is checked, and I go to Attributes here. This can be edited by the GM. For Acid Arrow, you'll note that in the description it says a successful attack roll with the dexterity modifier applies. So the GM, if you're creating this spell from scratch, you can add this variable at dex.atkmod, and then it will include the character's dexterity modifier if they actually have one. That's how that formula would work. So that's what the attack roll checkbox does, is it just turns on that attack roll. Without the checkbox, there's no attack roll formula. We'll go into more detail on some of this stuff, especially with the way this works in combat, in a later video. So for now, we've got these spells from the compendium dragged on, and if you drag your mouse over any of these items, it becomes a d20, just like a weapon attack. In this case, if a spell has an attack roll, like Acid Arrow, you're going to see it's got the roll formula that we were just looking at, and it's going to do that, and I'm going to hit cast, and it actually does an attack roll. And of course, I don't have anything targeted, so it's just assuming AC 9, and I missed, and there it is. If it had hit AC 9 successfully, then it would have also rolled damage. I can even try it again to see if I can actually manage to hit. Natural 1, critical miss. Oh, that's pretty cool. Let's see. By the way, the system does detect natural 1s and natural 20s and give you a notification like that. There we go. Finally hit, and you can see it rolled that damage for us automatically. So I'm not going to go into more detail on that because we will do a video on combat. But if I do Magic Missile, which does not require an attack roll, you can see it says no attack roll required to cast Magic Missile. There's no roll formula here. However, the cast button is still here because when I click it, you're going to see this number memorized 1 is going to drop to 0, just like that. So that's where having the tracker of memorized spells is nice. The system won't prevent you, because I had a 0 in Acid Arrow and it let me cast that spell, no problem. So again, this is a convenience factor, but it doesn't actually prevent you from being able to cast the spell. But in this case, since I had 1 memorized, it did drop to 0, as you would expect. And then there's no attack roll, but it did give me the damage button here, so I can just go ahead and click that and roll damage. And there it is. Now, of course, Magic Missile, at higher levels, I can cast more missiles, and I just have to click this over and over again, and I can do this as many times as I need to keep adding more damage. With or without an attack roll, you get this cast spell dialog. Click the cast button. It will decrement the number memorized. Next day when I rest overnight, I can just increment my number memorized. I can change it up, make sleep memorized, and take Magic Missile off. You manage that just like you would any other consumable type of item. Fireball is a good example of damage with a special type of formula. So because the Fireball does damage 1d6 per CA level of the caster, per caster ability level. So, of course, I would have to be 5th level to cast a Fireball as a 3rd level spell, minimum 5th level. So then I would actually be doing 5d6, because as a 5th level caster, my CA would be 5, right? So let's pretend I'm a 5th level caster, my casting ability is 5. And this formula, CA in parentheses D6, that's how that has to be written. When I do this cast, of course, there's no attack roll, but you can see now it created this 5d6 formula for me, so I can roll damage just like that. It has to be in parentheses. That's just the way the system works. If you don't put it in parentheses, then it doesn't correctly recognize the at CA as its own variable, and it would try to say at CAD6 as a variable, which isn't valid. It's not. So you have to put it in parentheses so the system can parse that out correctly. So it's getting a little bit technical, but again, if you want to create your own spells, it does honestly get a little bit complicated. So let's see, that's actually about all I've got to say about spells, and that completes character creation for a magician. We've covered all 6 steps in the creation process, where to find the different kinds of information on the character sheet, and a few features that the sheet provides, like the spell memorization and casting ability. There's going to be more to come in later videos, of course, as we roll up a PC cleric, and of course we need to cover combat and spell casting in greater depth, as I've promised. So be sure to check back soon to learn more about the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT.